Welcome back to Resurrection Radio, the show about life. Resurrection Radio is real stories of signs, wonders, and miracles, and people coming back to life. And now, the hosts of the show, here's Renee and Deano.
Boy, it's good to be back after a long, well, not a long break, right? I mean, we were off for a while, right?
Couple of months.
Couple months. Now we're kind of getting into the fun time of the year, right? The holiday
Yes.
season.
I wish y'all could see me because I'm drinking coffee out of a Santa mug, and we're going to be talking about Santa today. Oh,
Yeah.
St. Nick.
Yeah, well, boy, what a way to start the show. Our special guest today. Is it coffee or is it cocoa you're having? Your coffee?
Oh, coffee. Yeah. Yeah, definitely coffee and
Yeah, got to have the coffee, the caffeine. Yeah.
and yawning all day.
Really? Well, hopefully not now. I mean, it's fun time. If you're yawning at me.
Yes.
We have a really special guest today to kind of start off our new series here. We're going to be talking with Tyler Johnson, and boy, what a show this is going to be.
Yes, I'm excited. Tyler is a friend of mine, and
Yeah.
for those who have been listening to Resurrection Radio, you know that we've been a part of the documentary Dead Raiser, and that's how I met Tyler. He was gracious enough to actually come to my city and do a training and help premiere Dead Raiser, and so and you know him too, right, Deano?
Well, you know, what you just said, I remember the first time I told my wife and told some members from the church that I was going to a Dead Raiser training. They're like, "What? You're going where?"
Yeah.
We know you've had some questions spiritually, do you know, but you're going to a Dead Raiser training? And so I went in Wisconsin, and boy, I tell you, some of the stuff that Tyler shared for me was really life changing. It was good information. Besides the stories he shares and stuff, but it was just an eye-opening event for me. Yeah.
Yeah. And Tyler, that's what he does. He travels around and trains people how to raise the dead, but there's no really cookie cutter way. It's just very interesting. If you want more information, you just need to check it out at his website. But his team that he's been planting all around, they've been going for a good 10 years, and their website says they have about 15 resurrections under their belt, so to speak. And but today, Tyler is going to share stories, or at least one story, about how Saint Nick raised the dead.
What?
So he wasn't just a jolly old fat guy.
He was jolly. That's why he did what he did, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, he healed the sick and raised the dead.
Yeah.
Along with giving gifts to poor children and those who were in need. And so Saint Nick was an awesome guy, and he loved Jesus. And so I can't wait for y'all to hear Tyler share a story that's from his new book called The Dead Are Raised.
Tyler.
Hi, Tyler.
Hi, guys. How are you?
Good. We're playing a little fun intro music today here on Resurrection Radio. I found an old song of Jolly Old St. Nicholas. I thought that might be appropriate for today.
It's perfect. It's perfect.
It's good to talk to you, Tyler. Boy, it's been a long time since I've seen you. I know I've chatted with you a couple times on Facebook, and I always love reading your posts. So just wanted to throw that out as we get started today. So.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah. All right, Renee, this is going to be fun.
Yes, I'm excited. Tyler, thank you so much for sharing what you do today. So just tell us a little bit about what you do and about your new book, The Dead Are Raised, and share a fun story about St. Nick raising the dead.
Hey, you got it. What we do, we actually just provide a service to really any city that's got one of our teams in it. Our teams are basically kind of like modern-day Minutemen, just ready to pray in situations where someone's lost a loved one. We believe in Matthew 10:8. We believe that Jesus was for real when he said, heal the sick, cast out demons, cleanse the leper, and raise the dead. And anyone that knows my past knows that I lost my dad when I was 19, and I really was. It was such a vulnerable time in my life, a vulnerable moment, and I didn't really have anyone there to pray for my dad. I think that at the time I was a Baptist, but I think that everyone, when they're in a moment of tragedy, kind of makes these wild leaps of faith into the supernatural, or attempts, just because of desperation. And in that moment, there really wasn't anyone that I could call, anyone that would have had the faith to believe and to pray in faith. And so we, out of that place of pain in my own life, we have started teams all over the nation and overseas that are available to go pray and be there kind of at a family's like worst moment, and to love on them, to grieve with them, but to also stand in faith for resurrection. And so as a result, we've had 15 people come back, and the list is going to continue to grow, because it just takes a little bit of obedience and love towards God to see some fruit. So that's been really, really cool. But yeah, we did just come out with a new book. It's called The Dead Are Raised, and it's basically since 970 AD to the present. It's just basically resurrection stories from all various people, mainly Catholic. You could call them saints, although we all know we're saints now. And one of them being St. Nicholas, whom most of us know about because of Christmas, and he really is kind of the one. St. Nick is kind of the one that inspired our modern idea of Santa Claus, this idea of generosity and all this stuff. But there's one specific story with St. Nick that is absolutely wild, pertaining to resurrection. So you guys want me to tell that one?
Yeah.
I do.
All right. The story isn't for the weak of heart. So one day, basically, Saint Nick, he lived back in like 270 AD. It was a long time ago, not long after Acts closed up, and at this time in history, basically, there was a lot of famines. There was a lack of food, water, that kind of thing. And St. Nick one day was in prayer, and he saw a vision of a innkeeper. And back then, as you guys probably know, the innkeeper kind of did everything. They didn't just run a hotel. They served people in the restaurant. So they wore multiple hats. They were the chef. They were the homemaker, all that stuff. And so he sees a vision of an innkeeper in a nearby town. And in the vision, the innkeeper didn't have any meat to put on the table of his guests at the inn. And because of that, he went out into the street, and instead of obviously finding a cow or something, because all the cows had died because of the famine, he found 3 children playing, and he kidnapped them and took them back to the inn and killed all 3 of them. And now St. Nick, again, he's witnessing this. St. Nick is watching this in a vision.
Wow.
The innkeeper, can you hear me?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, good. The innkeeper kills the children, and then he prepares them to be eaten. The way that they were doing it back then was he cut them up, and then he put them into brining liquid in a barrel. Now, I know this is all pretty intense, but I wouldn't be telling this story unless there was a good ending.
Right.
So these 3 children are put in basically a brining barrel. The top is sealed, and St. Nick comes out of the vision. And he thinks to himself, there's no reason why I would get this vision unless I was supposed to do something. So he gets up from his place and makes his way to the nearby town, wherein he finds the inn that he sees in the vision. He walks inside, and he sees a man standing behind the counter that he saw in the vision. He's somewhat surprised, somewhat riled up with some, righteous anger, and confronts the man and says, "I know what you did." And the man says, "What are you talking about?" And Saint Nick supposedly said, in some accounts, it says that he pointed his finger at him and he said, "I know about the barrel." And the innkeeper went completely sheet white, absolute shock. And Saint Nick then said, "Take me to the barrel." So the innkeeper came out from behind the counter there and took him downstairs into kind of a cellar where in the middle of the room there was a barrel. So they walk in, and Saint Nick goes over to the barrel and he begins to pray over the barrel. And then once he gets done praying, he tells the innkeeper to open the barrel. And the innkeeper comes over, and he has to get tools to open it up. You can't just open it with your hands. It's been sealed shut. So they get tools they need, and they open it up. And when they open it up, the three children crawl out of the barrel totally alive.
Wow.
Raised from the dead. This story is it's something that Protestants that they're totally unaware of. It's kind of escaped us, but it's so well known in Catholicism that even Godiva chocolate, they for a long time during the Christmas season would come out with a solid chocolate statue of Saint Nick, and at Saint Nick's feet in the statue is a barrel with three children popping out of it. So
really?
this is something that it's just escaped us, and this is part of the reason why we wrote our new book, The Dead Are Raised, because it felt like to us one thing that the enemy loves to do is to cause the people of God to forget the mighty works that He's done. You know, over and over again in the Bible, it talks about Israel forgetting the works of the Lord. You know, even when God told them to stack up the memorial stones, you know, it's for the purpose of remembering the testimony of the Lord. So there's something about God's people kind of going off track because they forget what God has done, you know, the amazing things that He's accomplished. And so really what we felt like we were doing was every time we found one of these resurrection stories, we kind of felt like we were unearthing like a pearl. And finally I was like, dude, Protestants don't even know about these things. This has completely escaped us. We go through Christmas every year and nobody knows that Saint Nick, who influenced Santa Claus, was a dead raiser. So we just compiled them all into a book, you know, Francis Xavier, all kinds of, you know, Joan of Arc. You guys everyone knows who Joan of Arc is. No one knows that she raised a child from the dead. You know, it's just crazy. So it's a lot of fun, but yeah, and it's wild too, because help me out, you guys. You remember that song? Maybe it was the one you guys are just playing. I don't know, but remember that song about Santa Claus? It's like he knows when when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. Yeah. He knows when you've been bad or good. So be good for goodness sake. Now, here's the thing. There's a theory out there that says that song isn't actually about children, but that it's about people that would hurt children.
Wow.
Oh.
Like the innkeeper.
Right.
The story isn't really about a performance-oriented saint, but it's actually about the heart of God towards children. Like, you know how when Jesus says, any of you would cause one of these little ones to stumble, it'd be better for you to basically off yourself. It's not a story of warning to children, but a story of warning to people that would want to harm children because they're just beautiful.
Well, it makes sense because Saint Nick had the vision, like God showed him this guy is going to hurt children. And so, wow. So, Tyler, how many people, when you did your research, first of all, I want to know, like, where did you get your research? Because I would love to just find stories like this too. But I am going to read your book.
Yeah.
Totally. You know, it was crazy. I had to go back and find documents that were sometimes 1,500 years old. Sometimes they were like 900 pages long. And I just combed through these things until I found resurrection stories. I would look at sources that were more that were less dated, more current,
Mm-hmm.
and they would point back to these old documents, and I just went on this long research path. I mean, you can look at the works of Jocelyn for St. Patrick. You can just trace through kind of Catholic history. And the cool thing is a lot of these books are on they're on Google for free. Like, you can Google it and they'll come up in Google Books. And then you can do word searches in the documents for things like raised from the dead or resurrection or brought back to life, whatever. And they'll start to highlight those instances. But I mean, you guys, the kind of stuff that we dug up about St. Patrick's life and others is just, it's wild. Like one reason why not everyone is raising the dead today is because we don't realize how proficient it was for people people just raise the dead. It happened so many times. Like, we had to leave so many stories out of this book because there were too many. I just basically included all the bizarre, crazy ones that stretch our faith in the book.
Yeah.
There was Tyler, I remember attending one of your DRT trainings in Wisconsin. I had the opportunity to attend that, and I hope this comes across as a huge compliment, but when I was there, it just made so much sense to me because, I lost my son. And to me, prior to attending that, I was like, wow. To me, it was like, is God bipolar? Is he killing people? I was so, from what I had heard and learned and stuff. And I really thank you for doing what you do, because it just really opened my eyes. I was like, wait a minute. God's not doing this. God's not the one that killed my son. He's not the one killing people with cancer. And I would think it's really important that people know that, So
yeah, I totally agree, man. Like, the same thing happened to me when my dad died. I mean, people like to dress it up however they want.
Yeah.
But basically, the main thing was God took your dad.
Right.
Like, he planned this. This is a part of his plan and all this stuff. And I just don't think that's true. If the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy, and God comes to give life and life abundant, and anytime someone dies in our life, we can't just say immediately stamp God's approval on it and say this was God. So I think that's an awesome revelation that you came away from the training with. And if anyone wants to do one of those trainings, we're going to have one of those online on the 9th and 10th of December. I can't wait. It's going to be a lot of fun. But
yeah, I was sharing.
I love that that's what you got out of it.
Yeah, well, I was sharing with Renee beforehand too that when I still remember when I told my family and the church, I was like, I'm going to this dead raising training, and they're like, "What? You're going where?"
Yeah.
We know you're searching for answers, but are you Don't
go join a cult.
But I encourage those of you listening to this program. The other thing I got to attend or online or to attend, I know you did as well, Renee. But another thing I got out of it was that for me it was about life, is what you were talking about. So I was like, wow, this is really cool. So yeah, it was good.
And I do love that Tyler brought out the fact in the Old Testament, whenever, the plagues were sent to Egypt and it killed people, the plagues killed people, that the Old Testament writers didn't really have a grid for what they were seeing. And, I just believe that when a nation opens a door to the enemy, death is a result of that. And that's what happened when the plagues came to Egypt. And I mean, I'm just adamant about even telling my own son that no, God did not kill all those firstborn babies. He didn't, or, the firstborn boys in Egypt.
Yeah.
That was the enemy who did that.
Yeah, and I agree with you, but I think unpackaging that for a lot of people is really difficult. Yeah. And I think they feel like it's a contradiction to what the Bible says, but that's one reason why this training is so important, is because we unpackage the fact that there was a severe deficiency, and still is, in the church today, but in God's people back then, of the revelation that there is an enemy. It's still deficient. I mean, dude, that's why people told you that God took your son or that God killed my dad. I mean, because it goes back to a deficiency of understanding that the enemy's job is to steal, kill, and destroy. Yeah. Yes. And God's job description is life and life abundant. So you can just make life that simple. We can discern everything through that lens, and God still stays good then. We don't have to contradict Scripture or anything else, and the devil's bad. Yep. And we get to stand in faith against him and be victorious. So, it's that easy.
Well, I have one last question personally. I want to know, Tyler, as you've done this research, how many times did you find that Saint Nick raised the dead?
That was the only situation for him that we found.
Okay. Wow.
He's mainly known for, you guys probably know the story of the daughters and the dowries. If you don't know that story, I'm not going to explain it here, but yeah, he's mainly known for that, for his generosity. But this is another one of his. I mean, honestly, in my opinion, probably the most proficient dead raiser in history, aside from David Hogan, which is present day, is probably St. Patrick. If you ever want to look these up, look up St. Patrick. You could look up Anthony of Padua and maybe St. Vincent Ferrar. Ferrar raised someone from the dead that was cut up into little pieces, all the pieces joined back together.
Wow. Jesus really did defeat death.
Yeah, man. Come on. That's right. See, that's what it's about. That's what it's about, is he defeated death. He won. It's over. It doesn't matter how it happens. He won. And if we have faith and to believe, he can do incredible, impossible things. It's glorious.
Yes.
Yeah. Amen. I'm gonna throw in one more quick question. I know we're going a little longer here, but Tyler, you mentioned something earlier that I hear a lot: is people minimizing or maybe even afraid to share their stories. I think I won't use anybody's name personally, but I had a friend who, my mom had that kind of experience. Besides shows like this and books like yours, how do we encourage people to share the stories of resurrection?
Oh man, that's good. I mean, honestly, I think just first off, just being faithful to sharing with our families is huge. I know for me, the Lord's been tapping me on the shoulder about helping my kids to remember the testimony, remember the works of the Lord. So for us, every night at dinner, we share a miracle story every single night. It doesn't always have to be dad. If the kids feel like they've experienced something miraculous, then they can do that. And I mean, our son raised the dead when he was 3, so they have their own miracles that they can share. But I think just being faithful to family first, and then anyone that's got that openness, about them, that hunger. Anyone that's hunger for the supernatural, just everywhere you go, having testimony constantly on your lips. And there's nothing that shifts the atmosphere quite as much as jumping into a conversation and sharing a testimony. Because have you guys ever felt how it confronts darkness?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it just shifts the atmosphere. Sometimes it causes demons to manifest. It's crazy. Testimony is such a powerful thing. The testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. So every time you release a testimony, it's like planting a seed for it in someone else's life for that very miracle to happen. And so I think just for me, it just was I would write them down in my quiet times with the Lord. I would tell my friends about them. I lost friends because of that. Just sharing it with hungry people. But write a book about it, whatever. Yeah. Teach on it at your church. Just go for it. Don't be timid. Don't be shy.
Yeah.
What's that?
I said, do a YouTube channel.
Yeah, man. Just do whatever you got to do. There's so many platforms today by which to get a message out. So just be faithful with the little you got.
Awesome.
Tyler, thank you so much for your time today. And I'm so glad that we're able to have you for our very first episode of season 2 at Christmas time of all times.
Yeah.
So,
well, love you guys.
Yeah.
We love you, Tyler.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Resurrection Radio, real stories of signs, wonders, and miracles, and people coming back to life. Join Renee and Deano again for the next episode of Resurrection Radio, or log on to www.renee4321media.com to listen to more programming. That's www.renee4321media.com. Thanks again for listening.